Winter is coming. Let's start talking spoilers. Game of Thrones Season 3 Season Overview. You've hopefully tuned in for my episode-by-episode breakdowns, which were spoiler-free. This one, we're talking the whole thing. And you know what? We're gonna deal with the elephant in the room, the Red Wedding. I kind of want to start by saying that it was not as shocking to me as I wish it had been. I kind of blame HBO for this because it was about 8 months between the last episode of Game of Thrones Season 3 airing and when the thing became available on Blu-ray and I actually got my hands on it. 8 months is damn near impossible to be able to avoid spoilers when something is becoming such a massive part of the pop culture. I did my best and I didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but you know what? You give me that much time, I'm going to put 2 and 2 together. People don't get that upset unless somebody important is dying. And then I figured it was going to be multiple people thanks to South Park's little 3-part spoof where they had their George R.R. Martin character say, "Oh, you're mad that I killed everyone at the Red Wedding." So it's like, oh, great. So now multiple people are going to die. It was funny, South Park, but I'm still annoyed with you. So when I actually got to the Red Wedding, I was actually slightly surprised at how few major characters ended up getting killed. That said, I was not prepared for how brutal that was going to be. Oh my God. I can only imagine what it was like for people who had no idea it was coming. Unfortunately, I kind of did. So let's get over the shock and let's talk impact. To call this a game changer is a massive understatement. This completely changes what you think the show's gonna be. I mean, based on the first season, even the first 2 seasons, you would think Game of Thrones is basically about the Starks. There's more going on than them, of course, but there are initial lead into this world. We follow Ned Stark and his family. Even in season 2, yes, there's all this stuff going on, but we always keep coming back to the Starks. They're our anchor, they're our foothold, and so the feel that we get for this story is like, this is the story, struggle for the Iron Throne, told through the Stark family. Well, no, because they're pretty much all dead. There's still a few of them around, but I think a big part of the point of the Red Wedding was to go, no, this is not about the Starks. This is not the Starks versus Lannisters. This is bigger than them, so stop focusing on them. What do? They remove the distraction. With the Starks gone, now you can't help but look at the big picture, like the fact that there are friggin' ice zombies coming down from the north and you got dragons on their way up as well. Which, in hindsight, the thing's called the Song of Fire and Ice. Dragons, fire. White Walkers, ice. Of course it's bigger than the Starks. But when you've got something that massive and that shocking, that's a really hard needle to thread. I mean, I have no doubt that there are probably some members of the audience who just tuned out after that thing. Like, this is too much. This is too harsh. This is too brutal. And what I tuned in and thought I was getting, this is something else altogether. But I don't personally know anyone who tuned out after that, which to me says they did that just right. They took this massive, brutal, narrative-breaking event and make it work. I mean, it still hurts to watch, but it works and it keeps everything going. You don't suddenly go, oh, well, they killed all the characters. I'm like, I'm not tuning in anymore. No, instead, you just keep going. You go, oh my God, now what? Truly, nobody is safe. I can now talk a little bit more freely about some of the romance angles that were bugging me too, because I didn't name any of them specifically. The one that drove me crazy was Jon Snow and Ygritte. It was just so predictable and so generic and so friggin' young adult novel series junk. However, I do kind of love the fact that the season ends with her shooting him in the back repeatedly. That was awesome. I'm not sure it was worth what it took to get us to that moment, but that was pretty awesome. Now, the other 3 romantic pairings that annoyed me when I talked about the 4 romances going on in The Bear and the Maiden Fair, you had Tyrion and his, I'm gonna call her his mistress. She's just annoying at this part. All she does is bitch and moan and whine, and she's not really bringing anything to the table anymore. So she's starting to bug me, and she hadn't up to that episode, but her in that episode crammed in with all the other romantic stuff. I just couldn't take it. Then you had Robb Stark and his new wife, which I never really bought in the first place. Not that their chemistry wasn't good. It's like, how stupid are you that in the middle of this war going on, you're gonna focus on this? Really? You got bigger things to worry about, buddy. So whenever it focused on the 2 of them, I was like, dude, plan a battle. Something. Oh. Though, of course, we all know how that ended. The last one was Brienne of Tarth and Jaime. Now, I've actually gotten into arguments with people because they will attest to me that that is not a romantic pairing at all. That it's based on mutual respect. It's more about camaraderie. It's not really about romance. Well, you know what? I don't buy that because I have no doubt in my mind that if Brienne of Tarth was a man, Jaime would not have come back and rescued her. Him. It's her, but it would have been him if it... Whatever. He wouldn't have gone back. We've seen him just rip through people of all kinds, people who have been innocent, even people he respected, like Ned Stark. That has never stopped him before. It's never caused him to question his morals. The only time we see him do it is with a woman. You can't tell me that her gender has no impact on that. Now, fingers crossed it never gets consummated and we never go down that road, but it's still a vibe that I get from it. Maybe I'm reading into it, but given that it's something I hate, it's weird that I'd be reading that into it, but it's possible, sure, why not? Those were sort of the major spoiler points, with stuff that I wanted to talk about in more depth and more detail that I didn't really have the chance to do before. You know, taking the season overall, this was probably the rockiest season for me so far. I mean, season 1 just hooked me. I loved it start to finish. Season 2 was still really awesome. I mean, it introduced the magical elements a bit more, which I've talked about. I'm not as big a fan of as the more grittier real side of the show, but I was still good with it. There was nothing that I was majorly like, oh, nah, that's not working for me. This season had a couple of those things. That said, most of them were short-lived, have somehow been reversed or mended, so I'm not going to say this is any sort of jumping the shark thing or that the show's losing its touch. Obviously, they're pulling from the book, so there's a lot of stuff that they have to deal with that, you know, maybe if it was just up to the producers, they wouldn't go that route. But you know what? They don't have a choice. They're basing it off a book. But I think everything's just being handled really well, and I'm still crazy excited for this thing to keep going. So it wasn't the best season, but it was good, and I am so excited that I will get to watch season 4 as it airs, which means that I will be back with episode-by-episode reviews as I see the new episodes. Hopefully coming out fairly closely to when the things air, but we'll see what I can do with a compressed time frame. But until then, this council is adjourned.